Commander Elias Trent stood at the edge of the observation deck, staring down at the planet below. Virel 6 was a beautiful world, full of glowing forests and violet skies. But today, something felt wrong. Very wrong. Elias wasn't just any officer. He was one of the few humans trusted to work closely with the Kalari, an alien species known for their elegance, tradition, and strict laws. They didn't trust easily, but Elias had spent years building relationships on this world. Now he was posted at the mountain outpost near one of their sacred villages. That morning, strange tremors shook the ground. The local scanners picked up heat spikes rising fast from the planet's core. The science team ran their tests. Their faces turned pale. "Sir," a young technician whispered, "the core is unstable. We estimate a full eruption within the day." "Full eruption?" Elias asked, eyes narrowing. "You mean planetary collapse?" "Yes, sir. We have to evacuate." Elias quickly contacted the main colony command. They started moving people out of the human zones, but when he sent warnings to the nearby Kalari village, home of the High Matriarch, they refused to leave. "We do not run from the Earth Mother's tests," the matriarch replied calmly over the comms. "This is not our fate. It is simply a storm to pass." Elias knew that wasn't true. Science didn't lie. This wasn't a storm. It was doom. He made a choice. Without orders, without backup, Elias geared up. He strapped on his protective armor, loaded emergency supplies, and climbed into his shuttle. He was going to the village alone. The flight was rough. Ash clouds rose into the sky. The ground cracked below. Rivers of lava began spilling through once green valleys. As he flew over the forest, he saw animals running, entire herds fleeing, the danger. The village was just ahead, perched on a cliffside. When Elias landed, panic had already started. The ground trembled. Buildings cracked. The Kalari villagers screamed and ran in all directions, but still many stayed behind, believing in their traditions. "Where is the matriarch?" Elias shouted to a group of guards. "She remains inside, with her daughter," one replied. "They will not leave. She says her bloodline must meet its fate with pride." Elias didn't waste time arguing. He charged into the temple at the heart of the village. Smoke filled the air. Stone pillars crumbled. Inside he found the matriarch kneeling beside her daughter Lysera, who lay unconscious. A sharp beam of stone had fallen beside her. If it had struck her, she would be gone. "You need to leave," Elias said, coughing through his helmet filter. "The planet is breaking." The matriarch looked up, eyes calm but sad. "Our law says we must not abandon this ground." "Then your law is wrong." Elias grabbed Lysera gently and lifted her into his arms. "If you won't come, I'll take her." He turned to go. A loud crack split the air. The floor behind them fell away, revealing molten rock below. The temple was coming down. To Elias's surprise, the matriarch stood and followed. Outside, the village was chaos. Lava tore through the lower levels. The guards shouted as they tried to guide people toward the shuttle. Elias ran with Lysera in his arms, the matriarch close behind. As they neared the shuttle, a final quake hit. The cliff beneath them cracked. The matriarch slipped, but Elias grabbed her hand in time, pulling her forward. A wall of flame shot up behind them. They dove into the shuttle just as the last pathway collapsed into fire. Elias slammed the door shut. "Hold on," he shouted. The shuttle rose into the sky, shaking from heat and pressure. He glanced down at the girl in his arms. Lysera. She was young, perhaps no more than 20 in human years. Her breathing was steady. Her silver hair glowed faintly in the shuttle. "Lights." The matriarch sat silently beside him. For the first time she looked shaken. "You saved her," she said quietly. "I had to," Elias replied, trying to steady his voice. "She's just a kid." "No," the matriarch whispered. "She is not just a child. She is the future of our people. And now, by our law, you must take us both." Elias blinked. "What do you mean?" The matriarch looked him in the eye. You saved the royal bloodline from total destruction. On our world that creates a sacred bond, you are now bound to us. Forever. Elias stared at her, unsure if he'd misheard. Outside, the planet burned, but inside the shuttle, something else had begun. A story far larger than he'd ever imagined, and he was right in the center of it. The shuttle flew through the ash-filled sky, leaving the burning planet Virel 6 behind. Inside, silence hung heavy. Commander Elias Trent sat in the pilot's seat, guiding the small craft with steady hands. Beside him, the High Matriarch of the Kalari sat quietly, watching over her daughter, Lysera, who still lay unconscious on the bench behind them. Elias had seen many strange things in space. He had fought in asteroid wars, walked on frozen moons, and even faced pirate fleets. But nothing felt as strange as the words the matriarch had spoken before liftoff. You must take us both. You are now bound to us, forever. What did that even mean? He glanced over at her. The matriarch sat tall and calm, even as the light of the burning planet flickered across her face. Her long silver hair was now messy and dust-covered, but her eyes still shone with power. I think I deserve an explanation, Elias said carefully. The matriarch nodded. Yes, you do. As the shuttle entered orbit, the matriarch began to speak. Long ago, she said, before your kind reached the stars, our people lived in a time of war and fire. One day, a great warrior from another world, like you, saved our royal line during a disaster. In our old traditions, when a foreign soul risks death to protect the bloodline, a bond is formed. Not of marriage, but of honor and spirit. The warrior becomes part of the family, forever. Elias raised an eyebrow. And this bond, it's still a law? It is more than law, she replied. It is sacred. Refusing it would be the same as breaking a soul promise. He looked down at Lysera. Her face was peaceful now, her skin glowing with faint violet light. She looked fragile, but he remembered the way the ground had shaken, how he had almost slipped and lost her. He remembered how the matriarch had followed him through fire, even after resisting earlier. I didn't do it to earn a reward, Elias said. I just couldn't leave her there. That is why the bond is real, the matriarch said, her voice soft but sure. They docked with the Terran evacuation station orbiting Virel 6. Medical teams rushed in. Lysera was taken to a healing pod, where she slowly began to recover. The matriarch walked beside her, head held high. Elias followed, but as soon as the door closed, a group of Terran officers surrounded him. Commander Trent, said Admiral Forson, his voice sharp. We need a word. Now. He was led into a meeting room, where officers from both the Terran Council and Kalari Embassy had gathered. Tension filled the air. What exactly happened down there? Forson asked. Why did you break protocol and launch a solo rescue? Elias didn't blink. Because no one else would. They were going to die. The Kalari ambassador stood up. This human has invoked the bond of twin flame. He is now tied to the matriarch and her daughter under sacred tradition. Gasps filled the room. Several human officers looked confused. Others looked worried. You're telling me, Forson said slowly, that this man is now part of their royal bloodline? That is correct, the ambassador said. By our law, it cannot be undone. Elias stood still, trying to keep his face calm. Inside, he was spinning. He had just become part of a royal alien family, without any choice in the matter. Over the next 2 days, the news spread across human and Kalari networks. Some called Elias a hero. Others questioned the strange bond. Journalists filled headlines with stories like, Human officer becomes alien prince? Hero or rule breaker? Elias Trent at the center of interstellar tradition. Meanwhile, Elias spent most of his time in the healing ward, watching over Lysera. Slowly, she began to wake. Her eyes opened for the first time since the rescue. They met his. You are the one who carried me through fire, she asked softly. Yes, Elias said. You almost didn't make it. She sat up slowly, her hand reaching toward him. Then by our law we are bound. Elias gave a tired smile. So I've heard. That night, the matriarch requested a private meeting with Elias. I know this is strange for you, she said, her voice gentler than before. But I want you to know, we do not see this bond as a chain. You have the right to walk away. Elias looked at her. And what happens if I do? The Kalari will lose faith in ancient law. They will say the bond no longer holds power. Unity between our people will be harder to achieve, Elias sighed. And if I stay? Then we walk into a future neither of us can fully see. But we walk it together. Elias stared out of the station window, watching the stars drift past. A week ago, he was just a soldier doing his duty. Now he was tied to a royal alien bloodline, part of a tradition older than Earth's pyramids. He didn't know what the future held. But he knew one thing. He had made a choice that mattered, and that choice had only just begun to change everything. Commander Elias Trent stood in the center of the council hall, his back straight, his expression calm. Around him, human officers and Kalari elders sat in rows, watching closely. High above, a large window showed the stars outside the orbiting station. It should have been peaceful, but today, it felt like a courtroom. A voice echoed through the chamber. Commander Trent, you stand accused of breaking protocol, endangering a diplomatic agreement and involving yourself in a foreign royal bond without proper permission. How do you answer? Elias raised his eyes to the speaker, Admiral Forsen, of the Terran Council. I did what I thought was right, Elias said simply. The Kalari village was going to be destroyed. I couldn't stand by and let them die. Even if that meant tying yourself to an alien bloodline for life? The Admiral asked sharply. Elias said nothing. He didn't have an answer for that. Not yet. The Kalari matriarch, sitting beside her daughter in the front row, rose from her seat. She spoke slowly with strength and grace. Your officer did not break a bond, he formed one. According to our law, Elias Trent saved not only my daughter, but the future of our people. He is now part of our family. If the Terran Council refuses to accept this, you reject not only tradition, but also unity. A few Kalari elders nodded. Others looked concerned. This situation, the Admiral said, is not unprecedented. No human has ever been part of a royal alien house. Then perhaps it is time, the matriarch replied calmly. Outside the council hall, the news spread faster than light. Across star systems, people watched the hearings on every screen. Human citizens debated on forums. Kalari nobles sent messages filled with mixed feelings. Some said Elias had brought honor. Others feared the bond would weaken diplomatic rules. Some even accused him of pretending to be a hero for power. Elias didn't care about the attention. He only cared about what came next. That night, Lysera visited him in the station garden. The air smelled of fresh oxygen and recycled water, but at least it was quiet. She wore simple robes, not royal clothes. Her silver hair fell softly around her face. I used to think humans were cold, she said. Always chasing logic and reason, but you ran into fire for someone you didn't even know. I didn't think, Elias admitted. I just acted. Lysera smiled. Then you acted like a Kalari. They sat in silence for a while. I don't know what this bond means for you, she said at last. But for me, it means I'm not alone. My mother has ruled for many years. One day I will lead. And now, maybe I don't have to do it by myself. Elias looked at her, surprised. You think I belong in your world? You already do, she said, the moment you carried me from the flames. The next morning, the council gave its decision. Admiral Forsen stood once more, reading from a digital pad. After reviewing all reports and traditions, the Terran Council acknowledges the bond of twin flame as a cultural law of the Kalari people. Commander Elias Trent will retain his rank but serve as liaison between both governments. There was a pause. Then he added, he will also be granted honorary status within the Kalari royal line. As such, he is expected to represent both sides with honor. Some officers clapped politely. The Kalari elders stood in silent respect. Elias looked toward Lysera. Her eyes were bright. It was official. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was something new. Later that week, a special ceremony was held in the station's grand hall. Symbols from both human and Kalari cultures decorated the walls. People, from both sides, gathered to witness history. The matriarch stepped forward and placed a silver and blue emblem on Elias's chest. "This is the mark of unity," she said. "You are now one of us." Elias nodded respectfully. "Thank you. I'll do everything I can to honor it." As he turned to face the crowd, flashes from cameras lit the hall. His face would soon be known across systems, but he didn't feel proud. He felt responsible. This wasn't a medal. It was a promise. That night, as the stars drifted outside the observation window, Elias stood quietly, thinking. He didn't ask to be part of alien royalty. He didn't plan to become a symbol of unity, but he had made a choice. He had saved a life, and now a whole world had changed because of it. He heard footsteps behind him. Lysera stood there looking out at the stars with him. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "No," he said after a moment, "but I think it's only the beginning." She smiled. "Then let's see where it takes us." And together they watched the stars, two worlds bound by fire and fate. The calm after the council's decision was brief. Commander Elias Trent was just beginning to understand the weight of his new role when the alarms on the orbital station blared suddenly, shaking the walls with urgent warnings. Elias rushed to the command center. Screens flashed red. Data scrolled fast. Something was coming. "Unknown ships approaching fast," reported Lieutenant Mara, her fingers flying over the console. "Not Kalari, not human. No known transponder signals." Elias frowned. Could it be pirates? Mara shook her head. "Too organized, too precise. These ships use technology we haven't seen before. Advanced weapons. They're heading straight for Virel 6's system." The room grew tense. Elias stared at the screen showing small dots moving like deadly shadows toward the system. "We need to alert the fleet," Elias said. "This looks like an attack." Meanwhile, on Virel 6, the destroyed village was still smoldering. The Kalari people were scattered in shelters trying to recover. Lysera sat quietly beside her mother, the matriarch, in the makeshift command. Tent Elias arrived with hurried steps. "We have a problem," he said. "There's a fleet coming. Unknown enemies. They're armed and dangerous." The matriarch's eyes darkened. "The Varn," she whispered. Elias looked at her questioningly. "They are our ancient enemy," she explained. "Long ago, before the Kalari reached the stars, the Varn tried to wipe us out. They use powerful weapons to crack planets. We thought they were gone. And now," Elias said grimly, "they're back." Lysera stood, her eyes shining, with determination. "They attacked our home. They want to finish what they started." Elias nodded. "We have to prepare." The Varn fleet moved closer. Their ships were sleek and black, with glowing red lines. They fired warning shots at the orbital station, shaking the hull. The Terran fleet scrambled fighters to intercept. Elias joined the battle command, coordinating human and Kalari defenses. "Commander Trent," one pilot called. "The Varn have a new weapon. It can crack a moon with a single blast." Elias's heart raced. If they used it on Virel 6, the planet's core could collapse completely. "We can't let that happen," Elias said. "Prepare for ground defense. I'm going down." On the surface, Elias led a small team to set up defenses near the village ruins. The ground trembled under their feet, the sky darkened by ash clouds. Suddenly, a sharp cry echoed. Elias turned to see Lysera standing alone, eyes glowing violet. She raised her hands and a wave of energy pushed back the approaching Varn soldiers. "Lysera?" Elias asked, stunned. "What's happening?" "My power," she said quietly. "It's been hidden. Until now." The matriarch stepped forward. "The bond between you two has awakened something ancient in her." Elias looked at her in disbelief. "Our bond, it's more than tradition?" "It is. the matriarch said. It is strength. As the battle grew fiercer, Elias and Lysera fought side by side. Elias fired his weapon, guiding soldiers. Lysera's energy shield blocked attacks, saving many lives, but the Varn were relentless. Their weapons cracked the ground. Lava spilled from new fissures. The village was disappearing again. In the heat of battle, a Varn leader appeared, massive and armored. He charged at Elias. They clashed fiercely. Elias's training kept him alive, but he was pushed back. Suddenly, Lysera stepped between them, her power flaring bright. With a shout, she sent the Varn leader flying. Elias caught his breath. He realized then that their bond gave them more than loyalty. It gave them power to protect. Back at the orbital station, the Terran and Kalari fleets fought desperately. The Varn ships were strong, but the joint fleet's teamwork kept them from breaking through. Commander, Mara's voice crackled over comms. The Varn flagship is preparing a massive blast. It could destroy half the system. Then we stop it here, Elias said, determination burning in his eyes. The final battle was near. Elias, Lysera, and the matriarch prepared to face the Varn together. The old laws, the ancient bond, the new strength. They would all be tested. As the Varn ships closed in, Elias looked at Lysera and the matriarch. We face this as one, he said. Lysera nodded. Together. The matriarch smiled faintly. By our law, we must take this path united. The shadows from the void were coming, but so was the fire of hope. The air inside the grand hall of Virel 6's main space station was thick with tension. Hundreds of Kalari and human officials gathered, their eyes fixed on the three figures standing before them: Commander Elias Trent, Lysera, and the High Matriarch. The ancient tradition of the Flame Walk was about to begin. The Flame Walk was no ordinary test. It was a series of trials designed to prove the strength, unity, and spirit of those bound by the sacred twin flame bond. For centuries, it had been a way to show that the bond was not just words on paper, but a true connection of heart, mind, and soul. Now, Elias, Lysera, and the matriarch would face the same challenge. Elias stood silently as the Kalari elder explained the rules. You will face 3 trials, the elder said. The trial of flame, the trial of blood, and the trial of spirit. Each will test your courage, your loyalty, and your unity. You must pass them together as one. Elias exchanged a glance with Lysera. She nodded, her eyes steady but full of fire. The first trial began immediately. The trial of flame took place deep inside the volcanic caves beneath the station. The heat was intense, and molten rivers glowed red in the dark. Their task was to retrieve the Heartstone, a glowing gem resting on a pedestal surrounded by flowing lava. The path was narrow, with rocks that shifted underfoot and steam that blinded their eyes. Elias led carefully, steadying Lysera and the matriarch when the ground trembled. At one point, a sudden burst of flame blocked their way. Lysera instinctively raised her hands, creating a shield of energy that pushed the flames aside. It's working, Elias whispered, amazed. Together, they reached the Heartstone. Elias grabbed it, and the ground beneath them shook violently. They sprinted back, leaping over cracks and dodging falling rocks. Breathless, they emerged from the cave, the Heartstone glowing bright in Elias's hand. Next came the trial of blood. This was a test of trust and sacrifice. Each had to face a personal fear, visions brought on by a device that projected memories and emotions. Elias saw the faces of fallen comrades from past battles. He felt their pain, their loss, but through the visions he found a quiet strength. Lysera faced memories of her village burning and her fear of failing her people. But she held on to hope, remembering Elias's courage. The matriarch confronted ancient regrets and the fear of losing her daughter. But she found peace in the bond they now shared. When the visions ended, the 3 embraced, stronger than before. The final test was the trial of spirit. It was a silent challenge, deep within a crystal chamber that reflected their thoughts and feelings. They had to synchronize their minds, sharing memories and emotions, building a bond that was unbreakable. At first, Elias struggled to connect. The Kalari way of feeling and thinking was different from humans, but Lysera reached out, guiding him gently. The matriarch closed her eyes, opening her heart. Slowly, a light grew between them, a glow of shared understanding and trust. After hours of trials, they emerged to a crowd waiting outside. The matriarch raised her hand, signaling their success. The crowd erupted in cheers. The Kalari elders bowed respectfully. Even some of the skeptical Terran officers nodded in approval. Elias looked at Lysera and the matriarch. "We did it," he said with a tired smile. Lysera laughed softly. "Together," the matriarch's eyes shone. "You have proven yourselves worthy." That night, as the station lights dimmed, Elias sat alone by a window, watching the stars drift by. He thought about the trials, about the bond that had grown stronger, not just in law but in heart. His thoughts were interrupted by a quiet voice behind him. "You are different now," Lysera said, standing beside him. "Not just a soldier, a leader." Elias smiled. "I never wanted this. But you chose it," she said. "And that makes all the difference." He looked at her, feeling the weight of what lay ahead. The ancient law, the bond, the future of two worlds now rested on their shoulders. But for the first time, he felt ready. The calm before the storm lasted only a few days. Commander Elias Trent stood on the bridge of the Terran Kalari flagship Unity, watching the vastness of space ahead. The Varn fleet was closing in fast, silent, dark ships like shadows moving through the stars. Elias tightened his grip on the railing. Beside him, Lysera studied the tactical displays, her silver eyes sharp and focused. "We can't wait for them to strike first," she said quietly. "We must take the fight to them." Elias nodded. "Agreed. But the Varn have weapons that can destroy moons. We need a plan that keeps the system safe." The matriarch joined them, her expression calm but firm. "We will stand together, the Kalari Guardians and the Terran fleet. Our strength lies in unity." The Allied fleets prepared for battle. Human pilots calibrated their weapons. Kalari warriors ran drills, their energy blades glowing softly. Engineers worked tirelessly to reinforce the planetary defenses. Elias and Lysera trained side by side, their bond growing stronger with every shared moment. Lysera's control over her powers had deepened since the trials, and Elias's command skills had sharpened with the weight of responsibility. They were ready, or as ready as anyone could be when facing an enemy like the Varn. The first encounter came near Virel 6's shattered moon. The Varn flagship led the charge, a massive black vessel bristling with weapons. It fired a pulse that shattered the moon's surface, sending debris into space. Elias ordered the fleet to scatter. "Avoid the blast zones. Target their engines." Fighters darted through the stars, dodging laser fire and missile barrages. Elias piloted a fighter alongside Lysera, who used her psychic shields to protect their wing. Amid the chaos, the Varn unleashed a powerful weapon, a beam of energy aimed straight at Virel 6. Elias shouted over the comms, "We have seconds. Activate all planetary shields." The planet's defense grids flared to life, absorbing the blast but straining under the pressure. On the surface, the people watched the sky light up with explosions. Fires broke out, but the shelters held. Elias's voice came over the emergency broadcasts. "Stay calm. The fleet is holding the line. We will protect our home." Back in space, the battle raged. Elias spotted the Varn flagship's command tower glowing ominously. "That's their control center. If we take it down, we might disrupt their attacks." He called for a strike team. Lysera volunteered to lead the psychic defense while Elias led the attack squadron. Together, they flew toward the enemy ship, weaving through heavy fire. Inside the flagship, the Varn commanders prepared their final assault. The flagship's captain, a towering figure clad in black armor, smiled coldly. "Let the fools come," he said. "They cannot stop the fall of this system." Elias and his team breached the ship's outer defenses. Explosions rocked the corridors as they fought their way to the control tower. Lysera used her powers to shield them from energy barriers and traps. Elias felt the bond between them grow stronger. Her strength fueled his courage. At last, they reached the control core. Elias planted explosives while Lysera defended against guards. "Almost done," Elias said, wiping sweat from his brow. Suddenly, the captain appeared. "You will fail," he growled, charging at Elias. Elias fought with all his skill. The captain was strong, but Elias was faster and smarter. He dodged the heavy blows and landed a solid hit that sent the captain reeling. Lysera joined the fight, her energy flaring bright. Together, they pushed the captain back. With a final blast, the explosives detonated. The control tower exploded in a brilliant flash. Outside, the flagship shuddered. Its weapons went dark. The remaining Varn ships began to retreat. Elias and Lysera returned to the Unity, exhausted but victorious. Back on Virel 6, the matriarch welcomed them with a proud smile. "You have done well," she said. "By our law, your bond has brought strength not only to our people but to all who fight for peace." Elias looked at Lysera, feeling a deep sense of purpose. "This is just the beginning," he said. "Together, we can face whatever comes next." The stars outside the station shone brighter that night, a quiet reminder that even in darkness, hope burns strong. The silence in the medical bay was deep. Commander Elias Trent lay still, wrapped in bandages and resting quietly. The battle against the Varn had been fierce, and though victorious, it had left its marks. Beside him, Lysera sat holding his hand gently. Her silver eyes were full of hope and worry. The matriarch stood close, watching over them both with quiet strength. Elias's eyes fluttered open. His gaze met Lysera's first. A small smile touched his lips. "You're awake," she whispered softly. Elias nodded, his voice weak but steady. "I'm still here." Days passed as Elias healed. The bond between him and the Kalari royal family had grown beyond law or tradition. It was now a deep friendship, a connection of hearts and souls. The news from the Terran Council arrived with surprising clarity. After much debate, the Council had officially recognized the bond of twin flame as a valid diplomatic and cultural agreement. Elias was granted ambassadorial status, making him a symbol of unity between humans and Kalari. The matriarch, seeing the peace this bond brought, made a choice that surprised everyone. During a public ceremony, she stepped down from her position, passing the crown to Lysera. "You are the future of our people," she said, her voice steady, "and you will lead with strength and wisdom." Lysera bowed to the crowd, then turned to Elias. "This journey is not mine alone," she said. "We choose each other." Elias felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. But it was different now. It was not a burden, but a promise. In the weeks that followed, he trained alongside Lysera, preparing for their new roles. The Kalari people and Terran settlers watched them closely. Many were inspired by their partnership, a living example of cooperation and trust. As ambassadors, Elias and Lysera traveled between planets, forging alliances and building bridges between worlds once divided. One evening aboard the Unity, Elias and Lysera stood on the observation deck looking out at the stars. "Do you ever wonder?" Elias asked. "What life would have been if I hadn't taken that risk on Virel 6? Lysera smiled softly. "I do. But then I think, without that moment, none of this would exist." He took her hand. "I never expected to become part of your world. And I never expected a human to save my life," she replied. Their eyes met, full of promise. Far beyond the stars, the galaxy remained vast and full of challenges, but Elias, Lysera, and the matriarch had proven that even in the darkest times, unity could light the way. Their story was no longer just a legend of law or tradition. It was a tale of courage, friendship, and hope, a story of two worlds choosing to walk forward together.